Hi, welcome to another episode of Silver Fox Scotland. Sneddenlaw Wind Farm is one of Scotland's newest wind farms. It only opened this year. It has 15 turbines, and it is very, very worrying that for such a new site, for just recently installed, has had a major and very dangerous problem. One of the giant wind turbine blades sheared off. These things are massive and they're incredibly heavy. And it sheared off and flew quite some distance before landing in a field. It landed actually across a pathway. Had someone been on that pathway, they would now be dead. There is no coming back from one of those hitting you. These things are now got to be classed as dangerous equipment. And yet the government seems insistent on keep pushing these things out into the countryside. How long before someone is actually killed? And who will take responsibility? Is it the manufacturers? Is it the installers? Or is it the government that signed off on putting them there in the first place? I think ultimately the highest force is the ultimate responsibility. And it should be that if someone is killed, then it is the government that are taken to court, and the head of that government is personally responsible. So in this case, it would be John Swinney in the dock for murder, or at the very least manslaughter. And it would be him who went to jail. Let's make that a thing. Let's make the person responsible personally responsible. Let me tell you that decisions would change rapidly if that were the case. If you were the one signing off and saying, yes, put those things there, and people are killed, it's your signature or it's your boss. And it must go all the way up the chain. That's how these things should work. And if that was the case, and if someone like Swinney was to be taken to court and prosecuted and put in prison for corporate manslaughter, which we need to start seeing, by the way, then a lot less BS would be happening in our lives. Governments would be very much hands off, knowing that they are the ones that would be going to jail. And that's how it should be. If they want the right to interfere in our lives, they should have the responsibility for that interference. Does that seem fair? Now, campaigners around this are complaining, of course. They're saying that these great big bird choppers are very soon going to be human choppers. They're putting lives at risk. And they're calling for the entire wind farm to be closed down. And indeed, just last week, every wind farm in Scotland had to close down. The winds were too strong. And so zero wind energy was being generated. It was still costing a lot of money, of course, because the contracts are such that even when they're turned down, we have to still pay the owners of the wind farms for the money that they would have earned if it was generating electricity. So you're still paying them. And also, of course, you have to pay the gas provider because you're now having to fire up all the gas powered stations to make up for the lack of wind power. So you're paying twice. It's a genius deal, isn't it? If only the people who are running this country and making the decisions weren't complete retards, you might have a chance. Unfortunately, we don't. We only have retards running countries. We should actually have a minimum IQ test. Jesus, Shona would fail it, wouldn't she? But this huge wind farm, £75 million in cost, but think of the other damage, the dig out, the biological damage, the environmental damage. They have to go down so far, dig all that out, fill it with steel, fill it with concrete just to get the base. It destroys everything and uses way more energy to build these things than it will ever reap in production. That is, I'm afraid, a fact. And of course, each and every one of them has to have a diesel engine and in its base running because, hey, it might get cold or it needs a hand, and there's all sorts of reasons. It's very worrying, isn't it? All the lies they tell you about these wind farms so that other people can make an absolute fortune off the backs of the taxpayer. And now they're going to start killing the taxpayers. Brilliant. Let me know what you think. Thanks very much. Bye.